All right. Good afternoon, everybody. You could be joining us from anywhere right now. And as such, I'm not sure if this is relevant to you, but if you're in Connecticut or near Connecticut right now, it's snowing. The weather is terrible outside. So it is, of course, a perfect time for you to be hanging out with the four of us as we share some music and conversation with you. Um, so you could possibly even see it, see the flakes coming down majestically behind Henry's head in the silhouette there. I don't know. I mean, literally. I'm not talking like dandruff or anything. Like there's literally snow in the window behind you. Anyway, hi everybody. I'm Noah Baerman. I am the artistic director and founder of Resonant Motion, a nonprofit that has been around operating with Middletown as home base since 2012. And we are into season 6. We are wrapping up season 6 of Jazz Up Close, one of our signature programs and the source of our wonderful partnership with the Russell Library. We regret that circumstances do not allow us to be physically there with the members of our community right now, but we are making lemonade and really grateful for the team that has allowed us to um, adapt and pivot. We've got a couple master adapters and pivoters with us today. But before I talk about them, I'm going to thank a few people. We would like to thank our funders, who this year include the Friends of the Russell Library, the very supportive Middletown Commission on the Arts. Those of you who are just tuning in and haven't actually been to Middletown, Connecticut, may not realize what an incredible enclave of support for the arts this is, but I do not go a day without gratitude for that. And also Resonant Motion's donors. As you may have noticed in the welcome screen, you don't have to, but if this were in person, we'd have the punch bowl in the back in which we would encourage you to part with your well earned greenbacks to help support and subsidize this program. Because we do not have that, you can simulate that by going to resonantmotion.org/donate. Um, and another piece of information to keep, well, we'll get to that in a second. No, we'll get to it now. I don't know. I can't. I'm so indecisive today. So the other people I would like to thank are the whole team Resonant Motion, and in particular the wonderful Josh Kwassman, the proprietor of SquarEast Studio, who did the editing and audio mixing of the videos you'll be watching today, as he has been doing for all of these pandemic era Jazz Up Close from Afar events, and then in compiling the actual live event footage for the last several years. And also my friend and student Nicholas Sarambana, who will be manning the email address jazzupclose at no dots or anything, jazzupclose at resonantmotion.org. So if you are watching this on Facebook, but you are not actually a member of Facebook and do not want at this time to become a member of Facebook, then you can still participate in the conversation by emailing questions that Nicholas will relay to me. Again, resonantmotion.org is our website, and the email is jazzupclose at resonantmotion.org. Um, so those of you who are new to the Jazz Up Close format, we go back and forth between conversation and sharing music, and we will invite as much conversation and as many questions as we can fit in, and um, should I say ask us anything? What do you think, Nicole and Dan? Is that an appropriate question? Should we set boundaries
You
right
can
off?
ask anything. We'll answer whatever we are comfortable with,
Okay,
or more than you want
or
to
too
hear.
much.
right.
So,
Perfect. Perfect.
don't
So
worry.
to my I can't tell left from right when I'm on a Zoom screen. To also joining us today, the stalwart bassist Henry Lugo, who with one exception when we had a bassist band leader come and present, has been a part of every Jazz Up Close that has ever occurred.
Luckily.
Yes, he's actually the Guinness Book record holder for bass player appearances on Jazz Up Close.
And I did defend it.
Yeah. And so we are here to spend time this afternoon with the dynamic duo of drummer-composer Dan Pugach, the leader of the Dan Pugach Nanette, and the also wonderful singer and vocalist. Vocalist. I was part of a conversation recently about which was the appropriate term, but I don't know if that matters. And composer and pianist, songwriter Nicole Zuraitis. So let's applaud for Nicole and Dan. I'm just going to go straight to the first tune, if that's cool, and then we'll begin the conversation after that. So this is a. Do you want to set this up, the blues?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, we're starting with the.
Well,
we're starting big, huh? Okay.
Is that cool? They're all big.
Well, then I guess we should tell people that we're married.
We're married.
That's why we're not wearing masks. You know, because he's stuck with me since
they're married to one another. We should clarify.
Yeah.
Also that, yes.
Also that, but there's a bit of a backstory to our blues. Dan had arranged a blues for another vocalist or singer. I don't really care, by the way. And that vocalist at the last minute couldn't make the show. And so him and I had got into a bit of a couple spat that morning, as they do, as couples do. And he kind of blustered into the room and he was like, the singer can't do the gig tonight, but I wrote this great arrangement for the blues. Can you write some blues melody and lyrics to this? And I was like, oh, I'll write you a blues.
Wow.
So you'll see what that means in a moment.
It will become self-explanatory momentarily.
There's gonna be a survey afterwards if you believe the story. Like, which one is true? You know, like they do on NPR.
Right. Right.
Ask me another.
Wait! Don't tell me.
Eisenberg. Yeah. It's like which story is true?
Right. Okay. Well, so
I'm just saying it.
So keep that in mind, but mostly pay attention to the music, y'all, because you will enjoy it. Here is Our Blues by Nicole and Dan.
There you go again, Mr. Big Talking Dude. You've been whining but not dining me, and my patience is through. You've been lying but not trying, and it's filling me with doubt. I ask you for simple things, but all we do is shout. So I got some news. Before I kick you out, you're much more clever when you shut your mouth. Baby, your lover makes me weak in the knees, and there ain't nothing better than the birds and the bees. But I've gotta draw the line. I know you are gonna pout. My ladies know what I'm talking about, 'cause I got some news. Before I kick you out, you're much more clever when you shut your mouth.
How about that? How about that?
Well, I
Oh,
enjoyed
wow.
that. I
Wow,
enjoyed that.
I really let loose on that one. Now, in retrospect, I watch that and go, okay, that was a fully, authentically angry take.
Yeah, it was good. Well, and it also felt, I mean, one of the things that's tricky about doing these distanced recordings is making it, trying to figure out how to simulate the spontaneity of actually being in a room together in real time. And so I feel like it contributed to that.
Yeah.
Great. You guys sound fantastic. The editing is
Likewise.
amazing.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
How it came about.
Thank you. Yeah, Josh,
Great too.
we're very grateful for him, and but grateful for you and the great music. So I'm going to check to see if we have any. I'm not aware of any questions yet, but
No, but we have friends. We're watching also on Facebook, and we recognize a lot of our friends. So
cool.
it's really
Well, it
cool.
seems like people are watching. They're just maybe a little. This would happen. This would likely happen in
person.
in person, that people would be hesitant to ask the first question, and then once the floodgates open, then well, then there's questions. But so I have a question. I'm going to be opportunistic over the fact that nobody else is getting in line ahead of me. So you guys are actually not. We're not going to get deep into like the relationship dynamics, but since you opened that can of worms with the song and the story that set it up, you guys are actually not the first married couple we've had at Jazz Up Close. We had Meg Okura a couple years ago, and Sam Newsome, her husband, played on that one. However, the theme, we've had a different theme thus far each year of Jazz Up Close, and the 2020 theme, which I failed to mention up front, is layers of collaboration. And we specifically, for the first time, invited pairs, or in the first case, a trio of people who either co-lead projects or who perform in one another's projects, to sort of look at, because one of the questions we get most often when we're doing Jazz Up Close live, or the sort of category of question, I guess I should say, is how do you, if this is not a regular working group, because we've got this house band, such as it were, and people coming in, how is it that you're able to put this music together without having extensive rehearsals and so on? And so part of it is an opportunity to demystify how just the basic tools, in layperson's terms, the tools that people use to actually play jazz together and to play pickup gigs together. But I wanted to get into deeper the levels of musical relationship that can happen. And one of the things that I find interesting about your collaboration is that you both have distinct careers and voices as band leaders on projects that the other participates in. And I'm curious if you have any thoughts about similarities or differences in how you approach that partnership. Maybe you want to talk about the Piano Lounge, which is sort of perhaps in between in that regard, but like how do you approach a Nicole project versus a Dan project? And like Nicole, how do you approach singing on a Nicole project versus a Dan project, or Dan playing drums on one of your own arrangements versus one of Nicole's tunes? So hopefully that's clear enough to give you a jumping off point to tell us all about it.
See how she's looking at me? She doesn't want to. She doesn't want to deal with the questions, so she looks at me.
Okay, so
and
first,
she's gonna say, "Why don't you go ahead?" You know.
well, the first thing that I thought of, that I was like, "Is this appropriate?" is that on my shows, when I'm leading, I'm like a dictator, just like cracking the whip, making sure everyone's doing this, blah 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 blah, like being like, "Dan, get on stage," and I call him Dan, and then I don't drink until like at least second set, and then I'm like, "Oh, la 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 la," and then when I'm on his gigs, he always makes fun of me that I'm like sitting at the bar drinking a beer.
At sound check, she's already with a thing, you know.
Because it takes the pressure off of me, because we really do see our projects as separate. So the Dan Pugach Nanette is run by Dan, and he has all artistic control. He will talk to me, and we will exchange banter on what we think is appropriate, and then in the long run it really does come down to being a big collaboration between the two of us, but he's still in charge of the Nanette. And then my project, the Nicole Zuraitis group, or my generations of her, that is my project, and then he will answer to my needs, and he becomes a sideman. But at the end of the day, we come home to each other. So whether or not we have great opportunities to support each other, or we butt heads, trying to make a decision, because we're both very opinionated folk. So we try and keep a separation until COVID. So now, Dan, why don't you talk about our COVID? Everything's changed now.
Yeah, so everything she said, 100% accurate. We with time, as we went and got more concerts and more work with our both our projects, and as sidemen, sometimes together as sidemen for other people or separately, we learned how to respect each other's decision as band leaders, and also not to just pull away from it to become complete sidemen, where just tell me what to do, I'll just show up. But also there's still a shared vision, a shared goal. You're not just showing up to play and bounce. It's like, we'll finish a gig, or in the middle, I'll go talk to some of her people to get the pressure off of her, so she can relax between sets. I help her make set lists. She helps me make set lists.
I'll sell his CDs.
She'll sell my CDs while I'll deal with the horns, or she'll go to the horns when they set up and say, "No noodling on stage." That's a message from Dan above, the boss, because I hate when horns just like blow, Just example,
then I'll book the hotels on our tours.
Yeah, so.
But he'll do the legwork to get the gig, and then so.
Yeah, so yeah, we got better at that, and in the end of the day, we come back to the same house, and we want to survive together, and we want to make we want to be successful, and we want to be artistic, and so we found that there's a sacred place for my stuff, what makes me happy, what makes her happy, and so we're able to push in those two directions, and also parallel, and they don't contradict each other. They don't. We used to fight over gigs. Right. Yeah, we used to fight over gigs and opportunities and stuff, and then we realized Monday, Wednesday, and Friday it's the Nanette. The other days are Nicole's band with her quartet, different people. And then Saturday, Sunday is whatever, piano lounge or gigs for other people. So.
And speaking of piano lounge, we actually don't know how long we could really. We're very chatty folk, so we could go.
You can also mute us, and then we'll know that.
So, how about those Mets?
Yeah, exactly.
Like the debate, just.
But I do want to mention COVID.
Please.
COVID kind of really changed things for us, because the survival mentality hit really hard. And for Dan, he was like, "Oh, I'm actually really excited that everything's canceled, because I get to be home with you and our foster dog, and just kind of enjoy the time." And I was like, "How are we gonna make money?" So my survivalist instinct kicked in, and this is when we became a really excellent team. And despite us publicly always joking and poking fun at each other, we realized that we're really good in a crisis. So I had the idea to have a request-based show every week because I didn't want to waste our material every, every week. I didn't want people to get sick of seeing like my show that I put the arrangements in, and his show that he put all this time in and like love. And so I was like, if we do a request-based show every week, then the audience never gets bored. We don't get bored. And it's an interactive thing that people can be a part of. So we launched Virtual Piano Lounge back in like the end of March. And we've been doing that every single Friday. And since then, we've decided that, you know, we make a great team, and now we should really think about working together because the industry is getting harder to navigate. So rather
Working
than having,
together as opposed to having separate projects where it just so happens that you use Dan as the drummer because you like the way he plays, and he's participating in the project because he's your husband and would be supporting you even if you were like whatever, had a donut cart or something.
right. But like he would still be my
I
number
mean, it's
one
COVID.
choice.
It makes sense COVID wise. That's another thing that a lot of couples are. We see our friend couples that are musicians. Now is the time, to collaborate more and to, start your own thing and make it happen. As opposed to I want to play with I don't know who, and she wants to play with I don't know who, but it's not COVID safe. It doesn't
Yeah.
make sense right now. So we had to pivot. We had to. I remember the conversation. She was like, "Okay, we're gonna continue what she did for like 5 years. She had a steady gig in the city. She plays in like she used to play in like really fancy restaurants and venues that had
And I would never tell anyone about it because it was just the way that I made a living.
there was like a built-in piano, and she would just play and like request and everything. And she built a really respectful clientele and a community of people that are interested in music, interested in what we do, and want to support and want to be a part of our lives. And we didn't want them to just go away and disappear. And we kept that alive for them as well. And so a lot of our clientele on those Fridays have been those people that became really close friends with us and check in every Friday. And because of that, we had to also overcome the technical side of it because it's new. Nobody knows still how to do it right, and we don't either. And we keep, upgrading and experimenting and trying to get a better visual, a better sound, a better whatever. And so we've been doing that since April.
And I'm going to point out to our viewers here two things. One, if you haven't visited Nicole and Dan's virtual piano lounge on Friday evenings, mark your calendar for a subsequent Friday and begin doing so because it's a real treat. And also, being able to pull this off also presupposes that you know a lot of tunes. Or have the capacity to learn them really quickly, which is not something that's true
That's
for everyone.
her.
Nicole knows a lot of tunes.
It's a weird skill. I mean, that's why I decided to go back and get my MBA online during COVID. Not because I'm going to quit music, but because I was like, okay, what's my talent? Oh, I can play like any song. Okay. I need another skill. So like we're using that skill now to get us through this crisis, and it's really fun, and we love doing it, but like that's my skill. So I'm trying to develop new skills as we go.
Okay.
And Dan developed new skills. He became a freaking audio engineer.
I mean, not really, but I've been messing around with all that stuff, with microphones and all that,
Yeah.
to try to make it sound decent,
Yeah, I think you guys are doing a great job. And I guess we've got our first question. We've got a couple questions, but our first question, and it applies to COVID life as a musician. So it's a good, whether intentional or not, segue. This is from my former student, Dan Moakley. It's a question for everyone. Are there any particular innovations that you have noticed? You've answered some of this already, that you've noticed musicians making or found yourself in COVID that inspired you, either one, musically, having to do with the novelty of the time, or two, logistically / practically, in addition to what you've already been doing?
Why don't you guys take it, because we've been rambling.
I mean, you're the guests, but if you have, you can talk all you want. I will say that for me, just by dumb luck, I'm really fortunate that um, most of my teaching work has been able to pivot online. Um, but between that and various other aspects of pandemic life, including being a um, physically or medically complicated person, um, un- under these conditions, I actually have probably the least time on my hands. I mean, I'm I'm commuting less, so that's cool, I guess. Or it's cool in that it theoretically gives me more time, but in that time I'm like troubleshooting technical things so that I can teach my class or whatever, and swearing at microphone stands. Um, Only when they break. I mean, I don't just go around randomly swearing at inanimate objects, but you know, when this happens, well, like just pew, like right as I'm setting up a microphone, then the f bombs start to drop. But so from a time standpoint, that hasn't really been a thing. I have been doing a lot of socially distanced videos and collaborations. It's sort of dumb luck for me in that the project that I released this year, Love Right, my new album, has 100 different musicians on it already, and was um, recorded in a lot of cases remotely, in the sense that some people would record and then others would overdub their parts. There's only out of 17 tracks, there are, I think, 3 that were recorded in with everybody on the track in the same room at the same time, and which is pretty unusual for a jazz thing. And this is not entirely jazz, but more jazz than not, I suppose, if one can quantify such things. But so I was already kind of had inadvertently, just because of logistics, you know, I needed to have this singer, and she was in LA, and so it wasn't like I set out to do something that was logistically complicated, but that's how it turned out. And so I'm still not a great video editor. I'm certainly nothing like Josh, but I've learned how to do some of that stuff. And I was looking back, I think it was late March, I started a thing called Musician Aid Request. I don't know nearly as many tunes as Nicole does, but so I started taking, basically, if anyone donated, and this is still true, by the way, if anyone's intrigued by this, if anyone either donated $100 to musicians struggling economically in the pandemic, or spent $100 on goods and services, lessons, buying their music on Bandcamp, etc. Donated to charities that specifically offer direct service to musicians. Any $100 of any combination of that, and I'll take a request um, and make a video of performing that request. And then at a certain point, I got some donations that were directly to Resonant Motion for that, so I would turn those around and use that money to pay collaborators to participate in some of these videos. So that's one positive. I've had to promise that I'm going to slow down on doing that stuff, because I'm driving myself completely bonkers staring at a screen doing video editing. But I've got a whole bunch that are 11 that have been released, and another probably that many that are in various stages of in progress that'll come out early next year. So that's been fun, to at least be able to collaborate with some people who I wouldn't normally be able to because of geography, or what have you. Um, so that's my that is a silver lining and a skill that will probably still be useful to me to some degree, even when I can actually play music in 3 dimensions with other humans again. But that's enough for me. Others, um, blessings in disguise through making music in these times.
Well, we didn't take the pandemic as a way to end everything and move on, and just wait for things to come back normally. We actually released more content in the past couple of months than I think in a year. We released your album
Mhm.
on Dot Time Records. We released 2 singles of the Nonet that we recorded with a full band in February, and then that made us think, okay, so we're building track record with Spotify and stuff, and are expanding that side of things, which we don't really have time to do on a regular touring, life. So that's been interesting. So we're thinking, okay, so let's put another thing. So we produced. I did a video with Osnoy and the Nonet, and then that came out in, I don't know, July or August, I don't remember. And then now we just did a Christmas single with a full strings arrangement and the Nonet and her. We're still waiting for video, but the actual song came out and it's available. So we've been doing more of that, and we realized a lot of the records that you hear are actually not recorded at the same room or at the same time. Maybe Rhythm Section is, but even the biggest jazz names, they chop their solos up and edit their solos to make them sound as perfect as they need them to be, because we're all pretty much, that's our business card. It has to be perfect. So like, what's the difference really? I mean, yeah, we're not Rhythm Section live and stuff. There's a lot, there's a lacking in that department a little bit, but there's also uh, a pretty produced track that's good for radio, that's good for, it's not live, okay, but it's a well produced stuff, and we're getting better at that. And I think that's what we're doing now. So
Great.
And back
Thank you. Oh,
and
go ahead,
back to
Nicole.
the innovation thing, I was really inspired by the resilience of artists during this. So, just take the musician's aid request, or friend of ours, a couple friends of ours launched Live from Our Living Rooms that raise money for musicians in need. And, for the first 15 weeks of our show, we would donate a portion of the proceeds to someone else's thing, even though we were the ones that were out of work. So I felt like the musician community was really inspiring, because everyone was giving back to everyone else. Like, if somebody went live and I happened to catch it, I would send them $10 or $20, even if I only watched like 5 minutes of it, because I'm going, I hope that someone will do that for me. So the resilience was really beautiful, and taking care of one another was really inspiring. So that was huge for us during COVID to see that.
and like you mentioned, Noah, the new world of collaborations that was not really, I don't want to say not available, but it was not at the first of your
Right.
priorities, is now a necessity. Is now it's a thing. I can call you, we can call. It's actually more interesting and more, it's cool to be able to reach out to musicians you've never played with, that you wouldn't maybe be playing with because they're on a different continent or whatever. So now it's actually cool. It's like, oh, I wonder what sound he's gonna bring. So trumpet from here, bass trombone from there. It's yeah, we do what we can, right now.
Awesome. Thank you. Um, I actually have, well, if you wanted to chime in, Henry, go ahead. And, well, so my next question is actually from Henry's dad, but I'm going to save it. I'm going to save that for after we watch another video, because you guys were talking about all the new content you released this year, which includes Nicole's wonderful new album. So we're going to play a video of this quartet's, this Ad Hoc Quartet's interpretation of one of the songs from that album. Do you want to set it up in advance, Nicole, or just play it and then talk about it after?
Play it and then I'll talk about it after, because
Okay.
it's ironic that I wrote the song before COVID, and you'll hear in the lyric.
Right on. Okay, so this is Way Home.
Trying to abandon my post before I lose this war. My empty couch really hurts the most when I walk through the door. I know it pains to even take a breath, but please remember you have something. So go, try to breathe, feel sand at our feet. Cry if we need, wander far, wander free. But wherever we go, the one thing we know, find our way home.
Wow, what a great job he did with the editing of it. So cool.
Yeah, yeah. He well, and well, I guess
Thanks, Anne Marie.
what's that?
I said thanks, Anne Marie. So sweet.
Yeah. Again, if you're just tuning in, our guests today are Nicole Zuraitis and Dan Pugach, and I will shout out again Josh Kwassman of SquarEast Studio, and Resonant Motion team member for the last several years, and the person responsible for the audio mixing and video editing of the 2 videos you've seen so far and the 2 that are forthcoming. So now, do you want to give a little song backstory, Nicole, and/or talk about the project that comes from?
Yeah, sure. My entire album, the title of the album was All Wandering Hearts, because Dan and I, and as I'm sure many musicians can relate, we were living out of a suitcase for most of the year. We would maybe go on like a short little tour on the weekends, or then we would go away for a month, or then we'd go away for a week, and then we'd come home, and that there was always a suitcase sitting in the middle of our living room in Brooklyn. And so a lot of the songs on my record, actually pretty much all of them, are based on movement and the life of a traveling musician, the toils, the tribulations, the beautiful things that come from it. And I wrote The Way Home before we ended up buying a condo in West Haven, Connecticut. We bought a condo in West Haven, Connecticut in 2019, December 2019. So the crazy thing is that song mentions like go to the sea, feel the sand at your feet, just find your way home. And then next thing you know, we are home. Thank you, COVID.
For the long run, yeah.
Yeah, we're home. Like we had to after many months of paying both mortgage and rent, we ended up just being like, we got to choose. So we came to Connecticut 'cause we have a mortgage here and we love Connecticut. And, I'm from here originally. So hearing that song in retrospect is really wild, because like the whole thing was Dan and I were always so far apart, or we were traveling together, but never feeling like we were truly together because we were working. And so the point of that was after our dog Bianca had died. I was like, you can, people can really relate to the feeling that if you have loss, it's easy to spiral and not connect. But I was pointing out in the song that no matter what, like, we need to connect to each other and come home. So here we are. Now you're home with me. You're stuck.
Thank you. So this is in no particular order. The wonderful young guitarist. I promise I'll get to Henry's dad's question too. But the wonderful young guitarist Alex Tripp, who's also a student of mine, wants to know how COVID has affected our compositional processes. My answer is a quick one, in that once I finished Love Right, it was such a long and such a creatively and emotionally intensive project that I basically put everything into that, and and if I'm being honest, remain completely depleted in that sense. And so I've been around this block enough times that I know that eventually the well will replenish itself, and this is a time for me to just accept that all the ideas and so on went into that already. I'm ready to write a few simple blues tunes to play with my wife in our little duo project. But so for me, it's actually weirdly one of the reasons. The musician aid requests thing is sort of good timing for me. I mean, the fact that I have to do it is obviously terrible timing for everybody because it's a pandemic, but learning and covering songs that are requested by people is more appropriate for me right now than trying to generate material. So I actually don't know if there was a control group me who entered into a pandemic not already creatively depleted, then I'm not sure how it would have affected me. But it's wound up being kind of irrelevant in that sense for me. But so others, how have you responded compositionally or process wise to this realm of existence?
Henry?
So I don't write a ton, but I play a lot before COVID or whatever. You know, a lot of sideman work. That was like my thing. So I've been getting a lot more bass player me time, in that I've been trying to, you know, like just make statements at the bass and the bass alone that are musically clear enough that they're statements on their own, without worrying about like, oh, well, this will support something else. It's like, no, this is a statement and an idea that has validity to it, and I can expound on it. Let me see how far I can carry this idea while still carrying the germ of it, at the center of it. So but focusing more on playing things that stand on their own without, okay, this is how this functions in a greater whole, because the greater whole is not really available anymore. So I've been doing a lot of that, playing on it, challenging myself to play a ballad, and gee, if someone walked in the room, could they tell I'm playing I Fall in Love Too Easily? Can they identify the tune? Is it rhythmically compelling? Does it stand on its own? Can someone say, oh, cool, this is the tempo, it's a bass solo, I hear the melody, I can hear the chord changes, I can hear the harmony, but without it sounding like I'm spelling all of it out as well. So making exercises like that, also playing a lot of music that was written to be played alone. So I've always loved the Bach cello suites, so I've been playing those a lot because they were written to be played alone. So I've chewed through more of those, which was something I used to kind of dig into when I had like spare time, and now I've got a little more spare time, and I could work on things. Like I would normally feel guilty about spending a couple of hours if I had it just playing a Bach cello suite. It's like, well, no one's going to hire me to play this, but I love this music, and I think it's and it stands on its own. It was written to be played on its own. So, it's changed the way I practice, for sure. And giving me a chance to work on things like being rhythmically compelling on a ballad and still play the ballad tempo, and making clear ideas that stand on their own without other people's help.
I can relate to that. I feel like I got closer to the drum set as an instrument that's my voice, that's my outlet, to the world, right? Like you and I are pretty much the same function. We're not a vocalist, we're not a trumpet, we're not a piano player, but we're equally maybe as important. It's hard. It's been hard to take my band away from me, basically, and just leave me with like, here's the drums. Now what? Can you stand? Are you a standalone? And that forced me. At first, I was always, I was obviously pretty much depressed for the first month and a half, because it was always like, this is going to be only 2 weeks. This is going to be only another week, and then no one really knows, and no one gives you answers. And so, I was kind of in the dark while like moving out of Brooklyn, and everything was kind of new at the beginning of a pandemic. But then I kind of fell in love with the drums again, and it took away the whole layer of pressure on top of it, to be this or that. I was just left with the drums. I closed the door and I was like, okay, do I like it? Do I not like it? Do I want to play? Like, there was no pressure. There was no need for me to play. There was no gig. There was no jam session. Nothing. There was just like, do you enjoy the drums? Can you make them sing? And might as well now do whatever you want instead of whatever this gig needs you to do, or that gig. Here's your once in a lifetime opportunity to do what you want to do for yourself. And so I kind of rediscovered the drum set, and I fell in love with it. And I'm even just 10 minutes. If I go to the kit and I just like play and then 10 minutes go by, and I'm like, okay, that to me is now my golden, my golden moment of expressing myself and staying sane, or becoming sane. And and I was also depleted as a composer arranger. I didn't see a way, I didn't see a reason to write, or a reason to arrange, or a reason to put anything out there. So it's funny that we started the questions kind of like from now on. It's like it seems like we now kind of like know what we're doing, but early April, completely lost, and still thinking stuff will come back, and our life will be back to touring and booking shows, but not yet. So like I didn't see a reason to write, and so I had no ideas, and that was okay. So pretty much COVID hit a reset button for me as a person, to sit with my thoughts and realize I can make, if there's nothing out there for me and I'm just gonna sit here and wait, here's my chance to really think and dig deeper and see what I want to do as a musician, and I might as well give it a shot. So that's what I've been doing. And I know that you probably have like maybe a different way of approaching it, right? Like,
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, COVID for me, I break it down into three things. There's the compositional aspect, which I will address. There's the vocal health aspect. And then there's the business aspect. So I'll go backwards. So the business aspect for us was the pivot. Like, how do we make a living if, we're not getting unemployment, like a proper unemployment, because we're freelance gig workers and we're both full-time musicians. Like, how are we going to make a living? So the business pivot was really important, and building the virtual piano lounge and building a home studio so we can do home recordings, and also have proper videos and screens and all that stuff so we can do virtual conferences around the globe, and also still like maintaining a musical dignity that is important to us, and still doing our original music. So that's like the business side. Then the vocal health side for me was, wow, I used to sing every night of the week out in public. I was literally singing for my supper. And if I didn't sing, I wouldn't get paid. And that sucks, I think. I'm sick of that. I'm really sick of it. So COVID made me realize that I don't want to have to go and sing for my supper. I want to get I don't want to leave my house to get paid sometimes. And that's okay. Musicians should not be afraid to say, like, I want to make better money, or I deserve to be compensated for my talent. So that was a good thing for me in COVID, where I was like, wait, when things opened up from COVID and I had a chance to go back to my like gig in New York and play, but for a quarter of the price, in a not really safe, socially distant way, I was like, oh my God, I do not want to do that at all. That being said, I did it for 10 to 12 years. So any younger kids that are watching, like, you have to do it. You have to do those crappy gigs. You have to do the
you gotta
schlep.
pay your dues.
You got to
like,
pay your dues.
dude,
Maybe not putting yourself at
At a risk.
for
don't get
Right.
COVID or give
but
COVID.
other
Yeah.
than that, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like you're gonna schlep on the. If you live in New York, you better schlep on the subway.
Right. And like, go do those $50 gigs. We did that. Trust me, we did that. But vocal health wise, when I stopped singing every night of the week for my supper, and I was doing Birdland Big Band on Friday, maybe some sort of event on Saturday, or we would go on tour. And then I would also sing the piano bars on Mondays and Tuesdays, teach on Wednesdays, Thursdays play 55 bar. I mean, my voice was exhausted, so that has been a godsend in COVID. I got my high register back. I got my vocal technique back. That's a beautiful thing. But the final thing, the composition thing, is similar to Dan. Like I released, and also do you know, like I released my album of original music during COVID, and I didn't feel much inspiration, and that's like real talk. You know, I didn't feel much inspiration to write. What am I gonna write about? Like sitting at home wondering what the next step is. Like I I just didn't have anything to say. And from a business standpoint, I was teaching songwriting workshops online. I had incredible students who I was giving them prompts so they could write great music, and I couldn't even write a song myself. It was a wild thing that I would be like, okay, and they'd come back to me like the next week for class, and they would show me on a Zoom call this great thing that they wrote, and I'd be like, wow, that's so great. And I'd be like, wow, I can't show anything for myself because I don't have any creative spark right now. And I had to pat myself on the back and pat Dan on the back and say, that's okay. It's a global pandemic and the rug was pulled out from underneath us. If your creative spark's not there, fine. So like I've written like 3 or 4 songs. And lately, now that we feel like this is the new normal for us and we have been able to settle, both of our creative processes have begun to churn. And just like you said, the water rises again. So like we hit the rock bottom of the well creatively, but we're also in survival mode. So, you know, what do you expect? You can't do both unless you have someone sending us thousands of dollars and we can just like go on vacation and think about how like beautiful the earth really is. And, you know, like we have to focus.
It's not too late to send us thousands of dollars. Just saying. We're 4 people, you know.
Yes, this is true. So make your donation to Resonant Motion. Anyway, so that's my deal on creativity and composition and COVID. Don't beat yourself up if you haven't done it. It'll come back. I like what you said. The water will rise again.
Thank you. Well, and yeah, it'll be interesting. Maybe we can informally pencil in for a year from now, asking ourselves and each other the same question to see. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of question marks between now and then globally, but from this bookmark, it'll be interesting to see how the process shifts.
Right.
Everything changes, I guess. So Henry's dad wants to know what we do when we're not performing. I'll take that as basically like what are your non-musical endeavors, or what do you do with your downtime? Nobody wants to hear about my vegan cheese making any more than they already have. So,
well, we had no choice but to learn how to cook, and so I make a lot of hummus and homemade, you know, like falafel, and you know, it sounds silly, but it's something to do, and it's something to keep you, and you know, like you look for recipes, and you know, we learn how to grill, we basically learn how to cook, you know, and
we learned how to exist
we learned
not
how
in
to
a hectic musician lifestyle, and that was like a beautiful thing. We started playing tennis. We have a foster dog who's like laying at our feet that no one's ever going to adopt, and so she's probably ours. We love her to death. Her name is Bella, and so we had to try and like train her to the best of our ability. We didn't do a very good job, but we're trying. And then I decided that, you know, Dan has a master's and I didn't have a master's, and I was like, well, I want a master's, but I don't want a master's in music. I want a master's in something else. So my spare time now has been to try and develop a new skill. So that's why I'm getting my MBA. And yeah, we're just exercising together has been fun. Like the minute we figured out that we'd like to exercise together, it got cold and rainy. But we look forward to the spring where we'll go play tennis and like run with the dog outside and stuff. You know, it'll be a beautiful thing. Yeah. What about you guys?
Henry, tell your dad what you do with your downtime.
But he knows nothing exciting. The typical what do you do with your downtime things. We like to cook a lot, and I like to catch up on reading. As an
Kids
adult.
are exciting.
Yeah. I mean, it goes without saying. Love my boys, my sons, but when they're not here, or there's school, there's this or that. So when I have true downtime, when I'm not parenting, I'm not teaching, I'm not playing, reading, cooking, in the fall, lots of yard work. Yeah. So, and that's about it. Well, my dad knows all that. I should have let someone else.
Yeah, I mean, COVID has really cramped my alligator wrestling style, so that's been a drag. I've been for my whole adult life into vegetarian cooking, so we've developed / perfected some new recipes. That's been cool, and I really have actually been like making vegan cheese like a fiend. There's like usually at least 1 or 2 different ones going that I'm refining and experimenting. That was a completely new COVID era phenomenon. But yeah, my kids are older, so there's less in the way of like day to day feeding them or whatever. They don't, we're empty nesters in that sense. But it still takes up a good chunk of my consciousness, and my physical and I guess increasingly in this era, sort of mental, spiritual upkeep requires a fair amount of maintenance. So, I've been watching a lot of Thich Nhat Hanh Dharma talks and teaching videos and trying to keep relearning how to breathe, which sounds very silly if you're not into that kind of stuff, but it's been that I whenever I do that, I'm better off. And so how's this for an awkward segue? Breathing is very important to singing, and singing is something you're about to hear more of, especially on a tender ballad like this one. How's that for a segue? It's too late. I can't. We're live, so I can't go back and redo it. But you guys want to set this one up? The original recording of this is a wonderful duo version with Nicole and the pianist Victor Gould, so it was fun and somewhat intimidating to interpret it in this setting, but it's a really lovely tune, which Nicole will introduce and then I will play.
Sure. So this next song is a song I wrote quite a few years ago called "If Only for Today," and I completely forgot about it until Noah was like, "Hey, what are we gonna play for this show?" And I was, I'm a little bit of a gypsy when it comes to my charts, so I handwrite and scrawl everything, but Dan has put some of them into Sibelius for me, so I started looking through all those, and I was like, "Oh, what's this song? I forgot about this." So I wanted to give like a proper jazz ballad style without actually playing a song written by somebody else. So this is my interpretation of the Great American Songbook ballads, if only for today.
Great. Right. Is that nope, sorry. Pilot error. Let me try that again. Sorry, y'all. Well, that was awkward. Let me try that again. Yes. Also did I mention spending time perfecting technology? One thing that anybody who's doing like teaching or performing online has probably learned is that platforms and hardware and operating systems and the compatibility among these things changes on a fairly regular basis. So something that works like a charm one moment might hit a snafu the next moment. So
Yeah, we had to deal with a lot of that. Like applications also update themselves
right,
to become better, but every now and then they kick something else out,
right.
like a
There,
virtual camera or whatever, and it's just a constant, yeah, chasing technology.
yep, yep. So take two.
And I didn't know that I could burn so slow. Deceptive ease and constant flow of vertigo. All worlds colliding, melting the pot. How sincere the depth of what you say. I'll stay, if only for today. And I didn't know that youth could seem so wise. Starting over, taken by surprise. All that's discovered within your eyes, and the spark that lit the fire inside. I'll try until I choose to run and say goodbye. Accents linger, trembling fingers, that certain look upon your face. And oh, the nervous fear of new beginnings, while I'm searching for excuses to let go. And oh, I didn't know that I could burn so slow. Deceptive ease and constant flow of vertigo. Courage inviting, taking a chance. I think I'll try to find a new romance. certain look upon your face, and oh, the nervous fear of new beginnings, while I'm searching for excuses to let go. And oh, I didn't know that I could burn so slow. Deceptive ease and constant flow of vertigo. Courage embodied, taking a chance. I think I'll try. I think I'll try to find a new romance.
Wow, great job, everybody. That was really cool.
That was the most fun I've ever had playing a ballad with other people who weren't in the same room as me.
Yeah. How do we do that?
For the
That's
only
really
time.
American.
But yeah, it was a lovely tune.
Yeah, beautiful tune.
So I have more questions. This is presumably a survey for all. What is your favorite meal?
Any meal. All the meals. Now, what's your favorite?
My favorite meal? Probably my mom's couscous.
Mm. I think my wife Kate has taught me to be a seasonal eater, like it used to be when I was younger and just starting to cook, which was itself sort of like a financial necessity more than a creative burst of inspiration. I would just like, it wouldn't occur to me that getting a tomato at the supermarket um, in the middle of February was different from getting a tomato at a farm stand in August. And so so what my favorite meal is depends very much on what time of year it is. So like a lentil and root vegetable soup that we've made with fresh bread or something is a really nice thing this time of year, both based on ingredient availability and the weather. Whereas that's not something I would really want to eat in the middle of July when probably Kate's garden is going gangbusters and we'll be eating like kale and cucumbers. We eat a lot of kale.
I would have to say my favorite meals probably go back to things my grandmother's made as when I was a kid, as well. Like Dan was saying, his mom's couscous. I've gotten into cooking as I'm older, and I do a pretty good knockoff of my dad's mom's rice and beans. So I like that a lot, and my mom does a pretty good, or a very good version of my grandmother's kibbeh. So those are probably my two favorite things.
Are you like half Lebanese or
Quarter Lebanese? Yeah.
quarter Lebanese? Nice.
No. So yeah. So those two things, maybe leaning towards my mother's because I really like things I don't have to cook. I could just eat. So that might put it over the top. But yeah, those are.
My mom is from Morocco, and so everything she makes is like insane.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I miss my grandmother's. Both of them and their cooking. But yeah, my grandmother on that side made a lot of that stuff, and my mom.
And my in-law is Italian, and she makes insane lasagnas and meatballs.
And my dad can cook too.
And her dad's Lithuanian. He makes all this European stuff. So
cool. Yeah,
And
lots of good eating.
I want to add one more, not to keep talking about pre-COVID times, but like we constantly ate out pre-COVID, like all the time.
Yeah, in Brooklyn, forget it.
Yeah, because we were in Park Slope, we always are eating out, or we were on the roads, so we're just eating whatever people put in front of us. And so even before COVID hit, my favorite meal was anything that somebody else made in their house. like a homemade meal. Every time I would go visit my mom or my dad, they'd be like, "Where do you want to go out to dinner? Like, so good to see you." I'd be like, "I want you to cook for me in your home." And
Man,
that is my favorite meal.
we landed in a gig 2 years ago. We landed in Phoenix, Arizona, to do a gig, and the guy was driving us to the car rental or something, and we're like, "Oh boy, we've never been to Phoenix. So where do we eat? What's your favorite food in Phoenix? What should we check out?" And the guy's like, "I eat at Taco Bell pretty much every day." And we're like, "Okay, but maybe you're not the guy to ask."
Yeah. We will start supporting again when things open. But for now, I love a good home cooked meal. So.
Yeah, everyone's been cooking more. Yeah, which is nice, I guess.
I see our man Ken Laster is asking about the future of jazz in the city.
Are we skipping ahead? Is that okay?
Are we
Go for it.
allowed to?
Go
Are
for
we
it.
allowed
You
to
don't need to
address-
hear me talk about food any more than I already have. So
I mean, I do.
Hey, Ken.
I can.
So the answer is
Well, first let's read the question.
yeah. Can we get
Okay.
insight into how Dan and Nicole feel about the future of the NYC jazz scene? I know they were, because we moved out of the city, the Jazz Standard, famous jazz club, has just shut down. Others may follow. Will it come back? How long will it take? That's a good question, but when we're in touch with some of the venue owners in the city, like Spike from Smalls and Scott from 55 Bar and Johnny at Birdland, they're all trying to figure out the same thing as we go. As governments and restrictions change drastically every day, it's hard to say.
Yeah, as Dan pointed out earlier on, there was for many of us a sense early in the pandemic. It's like, okay, this is like a couple weeks or a month of something we need to brace for, and now here we are, and pretty much nobody who's, I mean, I hope this doesn't sound like an inflammatory statement to anybody, but nobody who is being really honest with themselves knows what's coming. There's a pretty global level at which we are looking at uncertainty, and the basic core circumstances that would dictate, for example, the financial health of a city or a cultural scene. um, there's so many unknowns at a deeper level governing that um, it's really hard to move forward not having something where we know, okay, I had this surgery and I feel like crap, but I know the recovery time is X amount of time, so I can start planning for what I'll be doing 4 months from now. And whereas in a way, I think I was trying to pull off this analogy for my students a couple weeks ago, but in a way where as jazz musicians, we're particularly equipped to have multiple contingency plans going at once. Like improvising is not you show up without any kind of plan and you just do whatever you feel in the moment. It can be that, but more often it's that you're over prepared and you're ready for a whole bunch of different scenarios, and then you're able to spontaneously um, use the things you prepared for the situation that is in front of you right then. And it's spontaneity, but it's spontaneity that's been informed by legwork. So I think a lot of us have like 3 different plans for the medium and longer term future that we're pursuing concurrently.
Yeah, I'm less worried about musicians. I'm more worried about the venues who have to pay insane rent
Of course.
in New York
Yeah.
City. And
But that being said, like Jazz Standard, this might be inflammatory, but like Jazz Standard was owned by a really large corporation that had multiple venues, right? So as a way to cut their losses, they shut the doors for Jazz Standard because they were owned by Union Square, some like big corporation, right? So they chose to pull the plug on jazz standards to save their butts in like a corporate way. But the clubs that are fighting tooth and nail are giving us hope, like Spike at
Spike at
Smalls,
Smalls for sure.
Gianni at Birdland and Ryan at Birdland, who are like pivoting, making Radio Free Birdland, you know, the Smalls Life Foundation. Those people are fighting tooth and nail to make music happen. And even our video editor, Josh Kwassman, you know, he was here in Connecticut for a bit and he just moved back to Brooklyn. I texted him like, oh, we just missed each other because we just moved out of Brooklyn in September. He's like, oh no, I'm here. So a lot of the musicians are staying put. And like I said before, they're very resilient. And what we love about Connecticut, well, besides being like a hometown Connecticut girl, is that you are so close to New York City. You're so close to Providence. You're so close to Boston. So I think that even if people are currently living like a little bit outside of New York, because they had to go home or they had a weekend home upstate, that they can't do both anymore. It used to be like, oh, we're so fancy, we have a rent and we have a beach house. Oh, look at us, you know, we're so fancy. No, we're not fancy anymore. We had to choose, but we can still get to New York in 2 seconds. So if somebody calls us, we're there. And I believe in the resilience of the city, and I believe in the resilience of the small venues that have been fighting for it.
I think, you know, in the short term, it's gonna look like it's like what it's looking like right now. Venues close, venues open up. There's a lot of confusion. Restaurants are on the street, and then they inside, outside. All this, you know, ping pong that's happening. It's happening everywhere, over the world. You know, we have friends in Europe and in Israel, and the sentiment is the same. But in the long term, I think it's going to come back. Maybe the standard is not going to come back as the standard, but there's going to be, yeah, I think there's going to be more venues opening up later, and it's going to come back eventually. Not immediately, and not as first priority. As always, the arts are not before survival and before health and before making sure everybody's cool, but it's going to come back.
And something very eye-opening that I do want to share. We were living for the last, I guess, 12 years, we were living in a pretty rundown, rent-stabilized building in Park Slope. Like, and when I say run down, I mean run down, with the landlord who did not care at all, with the super who did not care at all. It was really rough. And so I remember, you know, August 30th, after really going back and forth and like asking, can we have a break in the rent? Because we're not really there. And, you know, we're both unemployed, and the landlord was like, no. So we were like, okay, I guess we have to go. We're going to go to Connecticut. So as we're leaving, I saw our neighbors. There's only 6 other apartments in that entire building. And the neighbors downstairs were lovely people. We love them. And I said, so are you guys staying here too? Like, how are you here? There's no windows. There's like rats and mice and cockroaches. I know we were able to play music and we could have pit bulls, and we were having like nonette rehearsals. Like, that was why we stayed there. I'm like, but you guys are going to leave too, right? And they were like, well, no, we can't leave. We can't afford to go anywhere else. So that was such an eye-opening thing for me to know that we had this like beautiful fortune to be able to go and go to Connecticut. So people are staying because they believe in New York and because they can't leave. So it has to come back. It has to come back.
Well put. Thank you. Well, on what may or may not be a lighter note to end on, depending on your answers to this question, it appears that our hosts at the Russell Library would like to know what any of us are reading.
Henry,
You want me to go get the books that I'm reading?
It's up to you whether you want visual aids.
I haven't picked it up in a week or so, but I'm working through, not working through, it's a short book, James Baldwin's The Fire Next Time.
Cool.
I'm doing my online courses and
Yeah.
reading like self-help, self-dog training, help dog books. Yeah.
I look at scores and stuff like that. I don't really have patience to read stories and imaginary stuff like what TV would be, you know. So I just I don't have patience to read much anyway. I you know I appreciate reading. I love reading, but I'm like, if I'm gonna read, then for me I'm reading stuff that either I learn. So like I read a lot about mental health and OCD and ADHD and anxiety and things that this guy may or may not you know. So, and also about audio and about arranging, and you know, look at scores and look at transcriptions and that stuff. Whatever I can learn from, and you know, because I was never curious when I was a kid. I had this problem of like not being curious and not searching for knowledge and stuff, and that hit me in my late 30s, where I you know I discovered that how are they gonna take me serious if you put this dog in my face?
Didn't put her.
Anyway, I hope I answered your question.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm currently working my way I read very, very, very slowly. And I'm working my way through my second. I started this book and then lost it. So I just got it again. After the Ecstasy, The Laundry by the Buddhist monk Jack Kornfield. So it's basically about once you have achieved something that could be called spiritual enlightenment, how do you then translate that to the struggles of mundane day-to-day existence in the world? If you
Cornfield is a common Buddhist last name.
an American Buddhist monk, yes. Yeah.
I didn't mean to do that. What did I do? What did I touch?
So, barring other questions, I think we've got one more tune, and this one is a scorcher. So don't go away yet. But I'm going to take another opportunity to thank the Russell Library and the Middletown. Yeah, Russell Library. Really like that they are continuing to support this, even though we can't physically do it on their premises, is something we do not take lightly. We do not take lightly the steadfast support of the Middletown Commission on the Arts, both of Resonant Motion's work in this series and in general, helping to support the arts in Middletown more generally. It's something we're so blessed with. And Resonant Motion's donors. If you like what you heard and have some surplus greenbacks and want to help subsidize this series, which we will limp through next year as we figure out how we are going to navigate continued pandemic life, you can do so by going to resonantmotion.org/donate. Or you can drive by my house and just throw money in our. Well, actually, it's snowing, so that's probably a bad idea. So
I have a question
do
about
the first
that.
thing. Throwing money at my house? Sure.
The other thing, how is it snowing? Like Henry is in what? In New Haven. We're in West Haven. We're 10 minutes away. How is it snowing by you and not by
Well,
us?
maybe it's not snowing at Henry's place. Maybe
we have rain. We have rain here. Yeah, I would assume you guys have rain too. Dan.
Yeah,
Actually,
we had some rain, but
I think
not
it's raining
snow.
now too. But there's still snow on the ground.
I'm
Wow.
sure Russell Library has some books on, how to read the weather and
Weather systems.
weather
That's true.
systems.
Yes.
Mel, what's his name? Dr. Mel.
Right.
Yeah.
Mel's got a couple of books. Yeah.
Put them in the link, Russell.
Curbside pickup available at Russell
Yeah.
Library for all of your meteorological self-education needs.
Yeah, it is. Either way, it's crummy out today. Yeah.
So in any case, thank you all for your support. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Henry Lugo, for your wonderful playing and for your uplifting presence. And before we introduce this last tune, a big Middletown, Connecticut, Resonant Motion Jazz Up Close, Hand from Afar for Nicole Zuraitis and Dan Pugach.
Thanks for having us.
You guys are the best.
So do you want to set up this last tune, which
it's a scorcher.
A lot of fun. Yeah.
It's a scorcher.
It's a scorcher.
Okay, yeah, I was listening to a lot of Steely Dan and Stevie Wonder at the time, and so I wrote this song. It's called The Inscription. And then Dan came in when I was playing it, and he goes, "Wow, that could sound really cool with a samba funk beat behind it." And so I released it both on my album, my last album, Hive Mind, and he released it as a single last year in 2019 with the Nonette. So it's called The Inscription, and horns and all that stuff arranged.
And it goes a little something like this.
And it goes actually a lot something like this. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
Come here right now. I'll chase you like cheap beers after tequila burn. Soothing cold water, like Goyo, you warm the bitter winter nights with the joy of your laughter, happy ever after the breaths, sweet nostalgia. Come hit the bed with the gleeful mornings we raged from the rafters. Constant pressure, our fate. Come here right now. I'll whisper the notion that makes us in the blood. A blissful distraction, like oil, you warm the bitter winter night with the joy of your laughter, happy ever after the breaths, sweet nostalgia. Come hit the bed to the glee, for mornings we rage from the rafters. Constant pressure, our fate. Mystifying desire, gap to the debating. Fire, fragile, never delicate. Distraction, destiny, this is chemical reaction. Mystifying desire, gap to the debating. Fire, fragile, never delicate. Distraction, destiny, this is chemical reaction.
that was fun. The editing is so cool on this. And
You
you
guys
guys
sound
are
so
you guys are
great.
crushing it. You
Yeah.
guys,
Oh, great tune. Yeah, lots of
did you
fun.
know you play electric? That's good to know.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Sounds
I
beautiful.
played that one first. That was my first love was the electric bass.
No kidding.
And no, you crushed it.
Crushing
Oh,
the
thank
synth.
you.
Kate was like, "Is that Henry?" And I pointed out we have a running, I guess, what was an inside joke that is now going public.
Hannah just made the same joke. Yeah.
We call it lobby because the first time Henry and I have been playing together since 2002. And about 4 years into that, we played a wedding gig where we had to do some pop tunes. And it was the first time I'd ever seen him with an electric bass. And I'm like, this is so like disorienting. It's like you walked into the gig wearing a lobster suit or something. And
So now Noah calls it.
Yeah. So yeah, the electric bass is now lobby.
We call it lobby. Yeah.
So I'm gonna sign off from Facebook. Thank you, the Facebooks. Thank you, everybody, for watching.